disability for the first time, a lot of times it's really uncomfortable. It can be very awkward. You're not really sure what to say. You don't know where to look. Oh my goodness, do I even ask if they're having a good day? They're in a wheelchair. Are their days good? It can be weird and awkward, but the reality is we have likes, dislikes, interests, good days, bad days, just like everybody else. And when I can get you to look at my shoes, and before you even know it's coming out of your mouth, you're telling me how fabulous they are, we have common ground. It's something anybody can talk about. It gives us something that doesn't have to do with my disability directly, that you can enjoy and I can enjoy together. And it makes all the difference in opening up that conversation and being able to communicate with somebody in a way that makes sense to them. So that's the story about my shoes. Now you can see my slides, so I think we're good to go. So let's go ahead and kick it off to the video.
If you want, we can talk about what led us to these wheels instead of legs. That way, we can tell you the sad version and version 2.0, which is even sadder. Or if you'd rather, we could do it like the movies, and we'll embellish everything with a tearful story of effort and determination. But there's something we have to tell you. We're not superheroes. We didn't feel like them when we climbed to over 2,430 meters above sea level, one of the most beautiful and incredible places in the world. Unlike superheroes, we thought the same thing anyone would. We felt grateful to be there because it made us understand several things. But before we start to tell you, could you please change the music? Because there in Machu Picchu, we realized that despite everything, this is not a cheap imitation of life. This is not a copy or a simulation. This is not a lake that longs with all its heart to be the sea. This, my friends, is life. Life at its fullest. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Don't let anyone make you feel otherwise. Believe us, we are saying this for every tear shed, for every person hugged. In flickering neon lights with fireworks lighting up the sky. Life. Pack your bags, recover the ability to wonder, open your heart and let it explore. But even then, you won't be prepared for this, because we are not inviting you to travel. We are inviting you to live.
Okay, so now we're going to play a little game. And this is one that I'm not going to play, but I'm going to have all of you play. So, when I list something that is in your family, I'd like you to stand up and then stay standing. This can be your nuclear family, it can be your extended family, I don't care. Just as long as it's a family member, not a friend. So if somebody is in your family and they have a disability, I want you to stand as I go through this list. So stand up if you have a family member who uses a wheelchair. Stand up if you have a family member who uses another assistive device, a cane, a walker, arm crutches. Oh wow, that took care of almost everybody. Stand up if you have a family member who walks with a permanent limp. Stand up if you have a family member who's deaf or hard of hearing. Stand up if you have a family member who's blind or low vision. Stand up if you have a family member with an autoimmune disease. This could be lupus, ankylosing spondylitis, Sjogren's disease. There are a ton of them out there. Stand up if you have a family member with autism, Down syndrome, fetal alcohol syndrome. Stand up if you have a family member with another neurodivergency, ADHD, ADD, anxiety, PTSD, or similar. Stand up if you have somebody with a food allergy. Stand up if you have somebody with diabetes or a special diet due to a disability. Is there anyone still sitting? Look around. These are your families with disabilities. Stay standing. Now we're going to move on to my favorite part of the game. You'll get to sit down, but only if I have done something in the 4 years I've been a wheelchair user that you have not done. So sit down if you have never gone spontaneously dancing in a restaurant to live music. We'll start easy.
Sure.
Sit down if you have, do we have videos for these? Not videos, pictures, sorry. I have photo proof of all of them, you know, pictures where it didn't happen. I'm a generation here, so. Sit down if you have never done a roller coaster at a theme park or a water roller coaster. Good, we still have everybody, almost everybody standing. Sit down if you have never been in a parade. Let's see if we can do a little better here. Sit down if you have never ridden a horse. Sit down if you've never been to the top of the Empire State Building. Wow, we lost a lot of people there. Sit down if you've never seen a Broadway show. Sit down if you've never been to the top of the Brooklyn Bridge. That one was a real special one for me. I use a manual wheelchair, but I have an assistive device called a Smart Drive. And that Smart Drive is really, really cool when it works. The airline has damaged my button a few times, so now rather than turning on, it takes like 10 tries to get it to work. But it assists when I'm in a room with carpet or going up a hill or various other things, long distances. I know I'm keeping you all standing, just hang in there a minute. But when we did the Brooklyn Bridge, it was really important to me that I did it on my own strength. So I didn't use my Smart Drive. I don't even think we took it back there. And I wheeled all the way to the top of the Brooklyn Bridge in my manual chair. And it was so empowering, so life-changing in a way. I know that sounds a little corny, but it was. To be able to look at that bridge from the bottom and to think of it as the obstacles and to make it a visual representation of the obstacles we face in our lives, to be able to conquer that with my own strength was a really, really special moment for me. So next time you're in New York, make sure that you get over there. Even walking up that bridge is an incredible experience. And getting to the top and surveying everything that you are now over because you pushed to get there is a powerful moment, whether you walk or not. So, moving on to something a little more fun. If you have never done the thermal spa on a cruise ship and laid in the ceramic bed, sit down. Are we really lost everyone already? All right, I'm going to give you guys another chance. Everybody stand back up. I'm still going here. Come on, I'm still telling you about my life. Let's play on. Sit down if you've never gone swimming with sea turtles. Okay. Now we're just playing musical chairs. Sit down if you've never gone swimming in a Mexican cenote.
Oh.
Sit down if you've never done the bike tour with the Mexican ruins. That is an incredible experience. They have these bicycles and they've got these little carts in the front of them with benches on them, and well, they have benches if you are ambulatory. Into an empty one and strapped down my chair. And then I was able to go and see the ruins, just like everybody else on all the little bikes. And it was really, really quite an experience. Very fun. And we lost everyone again. Come on. All right, we'll just go on. Raise your hand if you have done this. Have you ever held a sloth? Y'all, I have to tell you, I did not know that sloths really move that slow. I thought, you know, when you see the videos, I thought that was a caricature. I really did. I thought they're exaggerating, this is fake news. But no, they really do. When we got to that sloth encounter, they were like reaching out to us, like it was so precious. And then they just loved to be held. It was amazing. We saw this baby that crawled on to its mama and just cuddled in there, and then mama just went across the tree. Really, really cool. Another thing, if you've not done it, you're really missing out. Have you ever gone ziplining? Ziplining upside down? I don't have a picture of that. Double ziplining. How about kayaking? Raise your hand if you've gone kayaking. Keep it up if you've gone kayaking in Alaska. There we go. And what about doing a sled dog ride. Anybody done that? That's a pretty amazing experience. We were there in the summer, so we did a summer run with a woman who has competed in the Iditarod for years. And it was so cool. The pack pulled an ATV all across, and they went into the water and swam, and it was just really fun to see these dogs get so excited about doing their job. It was really, really cool. How about a seaplane? How many of you have been in a seaplane? Amazing experience as well, right? Whitewater rafting? Whitewater rafting in Denali, Alaska. How about doing, swimming in a glacial river? Anyone? Anyone? Yeah, that's a pretty incredible experience. The water just sucks right out of you. Funny story about this. So this was while we were whitewater rafting. We got to this complex. Our tour guide was phenomenal. So sarcastic and funny. Everybody thought he was joking when he said we could get in the water. And then he kept saying it. So I was like, really? You're going to pull me back out, right? He goes, yeah. So I was like, okay, I'm in. And so I just flipped over the back of the boat into the water. So then everybody else was like, oh, crap, wheelchair girl did it. Now everybody but one person got in the water, and everybody was so glad, because how many people in the world can say that they've gone swimming in a glacial river? We'll have that memory the rest of our lives. And people hesitated because they were just afraid to take that leap to go in there. How about doing a handstand on a Murrow? Anybody? Anybody? No, just me? All right. And then, of course, we have my newest adventure, doing the go-kart. This was incredible. If you all have not been there, I have to tell you, it is amazing. Tell me the name of it because I'll get it wrong. High over there. High caliber, yes. Oh my word, this is an incredible facility. For one, they are autism certified. They've gone through all the things to make sure that they have things in place for somebody who is neurodivergent. So that's amazing. But beyond that, they also are super wheelchair accessible. In fact, that lift that they had to get into the go-kart, and I didn't put video and pictures of that, I do have it, and it will be up on my social media shortly. They take you into their garage. They have a garage. It's really cool. All the guys there are guys working on cars and garages. It's exactly what you're picturing in your mind. They are, kind of grungy looking guys, but they were so professional and so on top of it. I wheeled in. They had me get situated. They put the lift under me, hoisted me up, so now I'm dangling. Quite an image, right? Just dangling in the sky there. Slid the car under me, and then lowered me in and strapped me in. At no point did I feel unsafe. At no point did I wonder if they were going to drop me. It was so smooth and professional that the airports could really learn a thing or two from the high caliber there on how they handled that. And then the hand controls were absolutely fabulous. I was able to control the car using one hand for speed, one hand for the brake. I did not like the left hand very much. So we zoomed around this track and we had an amazing time. And one of the best parts to me, in fact, I am already calling it my highlight moment of the trip, was after that engagement, after getting to do that, we were going around seeing the rest of the facility. And High Caliber has a young man who uses a wheelchair. And he was so excited to get to talk to somebody who also used a wheelchair and to engage and to talk about something other than his disability. But to engage and connect with somebody about this completely separate thing. To talk about it, okay, how can we make it better? What do we do? How can we make it go faster? How can we make it last longer? How can we improve this? To have that conversation with him has truly been the highlight for me because you could see how much that meant to him to be able to do that with somebody. And that's what creating accessibility is all about. Making those moments where we can connect and we can engage and create core memories. That's why accessibility is important. That young man will not remember my name. He will not remember who I am or what I do. He probably will never hear me speak. But I am confident that that moment will live in him forever, and he will remember it going forward. And he will use it. It will help shape who he turns out to be and what he will do in the future, because he got to talk about being innovative and got to live life without limits. And he works in a place that creates those kinds of moments. And it will shape the rest of his life. So moving on, we'll go back to lighthearted stuff here. Have you ever gone hang gliding? Again, it's something really, really cool. There's a company called Project Airtime that takes families with disabilities up for free. It's amazing, and they are nationwide, so could be something to post that you are connected with a source that participates in that, bring people here. And helicopter. Have you been in a helicopter? That's a pretty amazing experience. Super fun. And my very, very favorite, if you haven't noticed, I'm a bit of an adrenaline junkie. Skydiving. Absolutely phenomenal. Who else? Nobody? Oh, there we go. There we go. You guys are my people. Awesome. All right. So, with all of that, I want to ask you again. How do you define disability? Does it make me less? Does it make me any less passionate? Any less intelligent? Any less prone to likes and dislikes? Does it make me lose my personality? My sense of who I am? That's not disability. When we talk about disability, the only thing you should think is I need to make an adaptation so that this person can experience life fully. That's a disability. It is the requirement of an adaptation to be able to fully experience life. Not on your terms, not on your comfort level, but on theirs. How do you make something inclusive? By letting somebody else decide their level of participation, not yours. So let's talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk, I really realized I haven't quite introduced myself fully. I'm Kristy Durso. I am a full-time wheelchair user, a military wife, a business owner. I own a travel agency called Incredible Memories Travel, which is how I got into all of this, and I'm the mom to 3 children. My oldest, she's 23, and she has the same genetic condition I have, 30 food allergies, celiac disease, and she's on the spectrum. My middle child is on the spectrum, and my youngest is, we adopted him out of the foster care system, and that is relevant because he has profound fetal alcohol syndrome, which is a disability that can come in a lot of different ways. Interesting fact that not many people are aware of. Officially, autism affects 2% of the population. Fetal alcohol syndrome affects somewhere around 6% for the cases we know about. 100% preventable, no cure, no getting better, just there. And I like to talk about neurodivergencies instead of just autism, simply because there are so many out there. I work in the military community with having, my dad was in the Air Force, my husband's in the Air Force, I was in the Army, and my son is in the Army, and I will say and unapologetically say that if you are a family that has experienced at least one deployment, you are a family with a neurodivergency. You do things differently after that kind of life. And so many people have anxiety, ADHD, ADD, and we have to consider all of those and start making it acceptable for people to ask for accommodations for those things. So that's my family. Those are all the things that we face individually. I am the official representative for Travelability. I am their ambassador, so I invite destinations and businesses to learn more about it and experience our conference. Our conference is every year. That's where I met Meegan, and it's also where I met Julie. So it's an incredible thing. If you haven't gone, I highly recommend it. I am also a speaker, and I speak to different destinations and businesses all around the world, being somewhat unique to even the disability community with so many connections and disabilities. Oftentimes, you'll get people who specialize in autism or they specialize in wheelchairs. Very rarely do you get somebody who can kind of speak to all of it. And then a particularly passionate area for me is dietary accessibility, and one of the reasons for that, some other fun numbers. Again, I am on the spectrum. Numbers and I are very good friends, so I like to talk about them a lot. 10% of the population has a food allergy, 10% has diabetes, and nearly 20% control a disease or disability by diet. And we in the hospitality industry have ignored those numbers. Let me tell you what happens where you have a family that you have your food allergy families. Those families are fending for themselves. They are coming prepared. They know what they can eat, they know what's going to kill them. So they're packing their own food, they're making sure that they've got everything lined up and they have their coolers in place and they have all the things that they need. They are prepared to do it themselves. They might ask for an accommodation. They're probably not going to trust it if it's an anaphylactic allergy. So we have that 10%. But then we have the rest of the population. Now these are the people who eat a particular way because their health changes if they don't. Let me tell you what happens with these families. We have, let's say, a family going to Disney World, and they're so excited. They're eager to see all the things, and then they're sitting down for dinner, and the person sitting next to them has ordered their steak and their potatoes, and it's got this really beautiful sauce, and the potatoes are sculpted really fancy, and it just looks absolutely stunning. And then their food comes, and it's a grilled piece of meat and steamed vegetables. And then we get to dessert. And the kid at the table next to you is decorating their decorate your own cookie, and the other person has their superhero cupcake and their princess cupcake that's like 3 feet high with all the food color and frosting and everything else, and your child gets a fruit cup. What do you think most people do in this situation? I'll tell you, the majority of people I talk to tell me the exact same phrase. I know I should eat this way, but I will pay for it later. I will spend 3 days in bed when I get home so I can be part of the experience. I'm going to ignore it because I know I'm not going to get the same experience. So I'm going to pay for it later. And they do. Or the family who has a child like Timothy or somebody with autism. They know that if they eat that food dye-ridden, sugar-filled, glutinous cupcake, they're going to have a meltdown. And yet, when you're there in that moment, you don't want to be a spectator. You want to be fully part of the experience. So you allow yourself to say, just this once. And then your next day is ruined because you have to deal with the tantrums that result from not sticking to what works. Why are we doing this? Why are we so far behind in making dietary accessibility a priority? And that's really all of accessibility. Really, if you think about it in the same way, we're talking about making people part of the experience. Taking people who are used to being a spectator, not participating, and making it so they get to be engaged as well. Every one of us can think of a way to do that with our businesses. It's not all big and expensive and difficult. Some of it is as easy as having a conversation and asking, how can we make this accessible for you? That's the start. How do we make this accessible? That communication key is the most important key, but making it so our families can really be in the moment with everybody else and not just in the door should be everybody's priority. So, talking about that, so we cover in the training that we do mobility, blind, low vision, hearing, deaf and hard of hearing, neurodivergencies and visible disabilities, and the dietary aspect. This is a program that trains travel professionals, travel advisors, teaching them from the beginning of the booking all the way through to when they come home, what they need to ask, what they need to do to make all of those accommodations. And then beyond that, we partner with several people. Whenever I speak and consult with the destination, I will give recommendations on the different companies out there that can help your destination, your business become more accessible. And you are so very fortunate here in Michigan to have AbleVu, which I believe is one of the greatest companies out there for improving accessibility. Just providing all of that information right off the bat and making it easy to find that information is super critical. So if you're not already using Meegan and AbleVu, I highly recommend it. There are companies out there that do autism certifications. The ones that I typically recommend are Autism Double Checked or IBCCES. And both of those will have a travel-specific autism certification, which can help train your destination and the individuals that work for you on how to become more accessible. Will the World, I know you all have consulted here in Lansing with Will the World a bit, and you talked about them. You saw one of their videos at the beginning of my presentation. They not only provide mapping for destinations, where they go in and get the measurements needed for a wheelchair user, but they also do a full-service travel agency, and they will also train people on how to appropriately accommodate wheelchair users, sometimes providing equipment and other resources. And we have all of that contact information, I'm sure, available for you. So let's talk about how we're doing as an industry. You guys ready for this? It's really super fun. How are we doing? Where are we seeing obstacles? Julie mentioned that we usually face obstacles. It's more than usually. The majority of the time. This is not how well we're doing, you guys. This is how often we fail. This is where our failure rate is. 76% of the time we fail on the air, 71% on cruises, and 89% hotels. And I would argue that it's actually even higher because of how low our expectations are. I was at a hotel last year where I could not open the doors because they were too heavy. There was thick carpet everywhere. I couldn't get to the window to open, close the blinds. I couldn't reach the soaps in my shower. So these are all the things wrong. And the bed was 27 inches high. And we'll talk about that in a second, why that mattered at the hotel. They were able to come and adjust the bed, but everything else was really difficult. Like, they wanted me to call the front desk when I wanted to come out of my room and go to the front desk to be let back into my room because the door was too heavy for me. How many of you would stay in a hotel where you had to do that? Can you believe, what would you do if you were asked to do that every time you wanted in and out of your room? You would refuse to stay there. And yet that was acceptable to them in a brand new hotel to do that. Now, that's why I told you this story. The reason I'm telling you that is outside, as I was leaving, I saw another wheelchair user, and I could tell he was a full-time wheelchair user because his chair was completely beat up. And so I asked him, I knew he'd been a chair user for a while, and I said, what do you think of this hotel? He said, you know what, it's amazing. They adjusted the bed, it's the right height, it's one of the best hotels I've ever stayed in. And I asked why, and he said because they made the bed the right height, and the toilet was the right height. Do you pick your hotel and say that it's amazing based on the bed height and the toilet? Really, that's how low our expectations are as people with disabilities, that's all we're looking for, is to be able to get in and out of the bed, and we can't even open our own door. I asked him about the door. He goes, oh, I can never open the doors. So it wasn't even an expectation of his to be able to open his own door. Can you imagine that that's the only criteria you had? So do you think that number is accurate, 89%, or do you think it might be even higher, like 95, 98%? That's where I would put it. As far as airplane accommodations, the same thing is true. I think we make things work, and the same thing with the cruises. When cruising, the accessible excursions, they're designated as wheelchair accessible. Almost all of them, at the end of the description, say must be able to walk 2 or 3 steps. That's not accessible, guys. If I have to walk, that is not wheelchair accessible. So again, that rate, we see 71%, I think 71% failure. The other 29 are going, it's close enough. I can manage it. It's not maybe necessarily a truly accessible rate. So how do we improve that? What do we change? Well, let's look at, again, a few of the things that we might see that are common to here I have no excuse, but a lot of times when I'm in a hotel, all I can see, or in a bathroom of any kind, all I can see is my nose up. So if my makeup is ever a mess down here, mind your own business. This is as good as I can get. So that's a really common one. Another one is take a look at my shower over here. And you may not see the problem right away. But how am I going to reach that? that shower head. And this is a really common problem almost everywhere, and I don't really even hold it against anyone, because if you are ambulatory and you're cleaning the shower and getting it ready for somebody, you're going to raise that up to where you're comfortable with it. So it makes sense to have it at that highest setting, and almost every hotel does that. You need to have it in your standards that it should be all the way down for the wheelchair users. Anybody can raise it up, but I can't lower it down unless I need to call the front desk, have them come in and lower it down, announce that I want to take a shower. Not a big thing. So that's another common one. All right, what else do we have? Not being able to reach the soap. You know, I went to the zoo yesterday and I was so impressed. It is well above average, very accessible, wonderful job, all the signage, everything there is. But this is a common thing, and the zoo had this, and I know they're going to fix it because they're so proactive. Being able to reach soap dispensers. If you mount them on the back of the wall, I have to be able to reach up and over that counter and lean forward in my seat. Not everybody can do that. Having a soap easier to reach is super important. So there's another one. The safes. Not a whole lot of good to me if I can't see in it and make sure that I've gotten everything in and out of it. I may want it safe, but I want to make sure I get it back out. I can't see in that. I can barely reach the numbers. And then going out onto a balcony or patio. If you've got a ledge there, I now have to wheelie over it. Not necessarily the same. Now, I don't know a single manual wheelchair user who doesn't wheelie just for the fun of it. But still, it's not necessarily, if you have a child in a wheelchair, they may not be ready for that. Or you may have somebody too weak to do it. You really want to have a little threshold ramp. And a threshold ramp is like $40 on Amazon. Get a threshold ramp for your edges like that. It's super easy. Minibar, coffee, anything in the room. If it's higher than I can reach without standing up, that's not accessible. If I'm by myself, I'm not able to access that now. Or a fridge, not having enough space to open that door and be able to access that. Or have you cleared your access way? You may have the designated ADA room, but these things aren't necessarily regulated. Where you put the fridge, what direction it opens, how does that door open? Am I able to fit my wheelchair in between with the drawer open for the dresser to make sure I can access that? All of these things matter. Being able to reach the closet, not all of this is regulated by the ADA. I don't have a picture of the blinds of furniture in front of the windows, but how do I open and close my own window if you have furniture in front of it? There are so many little details that have to be thought of. If you are simply meeting the ADA standards, you are not functionally accessible. To have somebody like me come in and help you look at all these little things that the ADA doesn't cover. One that's not on here that is the most common problem in showers. In fact, I've changed my room here because of this situation. The shower bench in relation to the shower controls. It doesn't matter if I'm traveling with somebody else, but I travel by myself. I want to be able to turn on my own shower. And if I have to sit in the bench on this wall and the shower controls are over there, that's not happening without getting my chair wet, which again, this is not an inexpensive chair. And if I had a power chair, that could be downright dangerous to it. So we need to make sure that we're looking at all these details that the ADA doesn't cover. You need to have a functional accessibility consultant come in to your business and make sure that you have all of these issues clear. Another super common one I don't have a picture of is trash cans in front of elevators. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? You know, everybody's going over to that button, they can drop their trash, push the button. What if I can't reach around that trash can? How am I going to press that button if it's blocked by a trash can? I happen to be able to reach pretty well. I have good upper body mobility, but some of us have T-Rex arms. Some of us can't lean forward. Some of us can't reach to the side. So you want to make that area as clear as possible. And again, have somebody come in to talk about it with you and go over all these trouble spots not to cover. So that is hotel. Now moving on to this picture. This is a fun one. We'll talk a little bit about airports and the issues I had getting here. Enforce your accessible spaces. You know, you are allowed to ask a couple of questions if you have somebody using an accessible feature and they don't, on appearance, meet that need. Invisible disabilities are there, we definitely need to accommodate those. But you are allowed to ask 2 questions. Do you have a disability? What accommodations do you need? Those are legal questions. So if you have people sitting in what you've designated as accessible seating without an apparent disability, you do have the right to ask them if they need that accessible seating and enforce the accessible seating. Otherwise, we're left without a place to sit. We can't go to the other areas to sit. So now my entire family stands around me because all the accessible seating is taken by people who don't require it, or they put their bags on it, and nobody is enforcing those spaces. It is important to enforce the accessibility once you have it. So we want to see that. And talking about our airport experiences, if y'all know, wheelchair users are first on and last off. Well, first on is not really, neither one of them is required by law for any safety reason. The reason for first on is to give us a secure, help us to preserve our dignity, to give us a private boarding experience where nobody has to watch us be helplessly lifted and moved and everything else. That is for our own dignity. It is not a rule for any other reason. It does happen to be easier for them as well to load us first and get the equipment off before letting everyone else on. But it's not a requirement. It is the law, though, that we are the first on the plane. And it is our right to enforce that when we're there. I've had times where I've gotten there and they start letting other people go in. The law says I'm first. And I would like my private boarding experience because disabilities do go hand in hand. If somebody's a wheelchair user, the chances of them having some anxiety with that are pretty high. We want to be able to preserve people's dignity as often as possible, which again, high caliber. Having that lift in a private location in an area where not everybody is going to be watching. We're not a spectator show here, guys. Brilliant. Love the fact that that's a private experience. So really good job on that. And then last stop. The last stop becomes a problem in airports like Lansing's and San Antonio, where we are not as large as, say, BWI. And we get off the plane, we're 45 minutes into, the plane has been on the ground for 45 minutes by the time we're cleared and we get all the way out into where the luggage is. And if you're a smaller airport, by then, your luggage is usually gone. Or even larger airports. They take it and put it somewhere secure. So now we've got to go on a treasure hunt and find our luggage, find the right person to ask. Larger airports tend to have a luggage office, and that's easy. But here in Michigan, they don't have that. They don't have the staffing for it. They don't have the need for it. So when I landed, and by the time we got there, my luggage was locked up. And there was nobody from Delta out there to release it to me. I think we waited 20 minutes at least. I think it was longer than that. I think it was 30 to 45 minutes that we had to wait for a Delta employee to come out and finally get me my luggage. And we actually had to chase somebody else down that thankfully Meegan knew, and we were able to get it. And that is just part of being a wheelchair user, an expectation. As far as airports go, I have a huge win. My chair did not break on the way here. So, yay! Yes, I know that doesn't seem like it should be plausible, right? That should be my expectation, right? This chair currently has over $5,000 worth of damage on it. As I said, actually, it's with the dial being broken, it's even more than that. Every time except this time that it has gone in cargo, it's broken. And we need to be prepared with a list of companies that can do temporary rentals when we get to destinations, because then it takes 4 to 6 months to get a replacement part because of supply chain issues. So yes, the airplane is using my chair, but I've had this problem since May, and I won't get my new chair until December. I'm sitting on that much damage, which, you know, it works as a wheelchair. I can roll around, but the seat is off kilter, which means that I'm not sitting as straight as I should be, which leads to more pain, which leads to more therapy, which leads and leads and leads and leads. Make sure that we have teams available, that we know who the DMOs are in our destination to refer people to if they to when you get here to make sure that you're in something that works for you. So there are all kinds of ways, just right off the bat, that doesn't even cost you anything. Just a little research, finding out who your medical supply companies are. So those are some of the problems that we face. Now, I have a question for you as we go into this. Oh, I already have the number up there. Did you realize how much we spend on accessible travel? $58.7 billion in a 2-year period. That's a large number. I love getting to ask people how much they think people spend on accessible travel. And they, I don't know, maybe 10 million? I think the closest anybody ever got was 2 billion. Nobody ever thinks it's this much. But do you know there's such a large percentage of us who don't travel at all? Yet we spend more on our trips. We spend, I believe the average family spends $3,200. We spend $38,000. So we spend more. We travel in bigger groups. We need the support. We want as many people with us as possible. So we travel in bigger groups, and then we give more recommendations. When you leave a review, people who leave reviews usually leave bad ones, right? They're usually only going to take the time to leave a review if it's negative, normally, not your families with disabilities. We've been in the pit, we've been in the dirt, we know what stinks, and we don't want anyone else to be down there. So when we find something that works, we're telling everybody, we're shouting it from the rooftop. We're going to make sure every other person we know with a disability knows that this place is accessible. We're going to make sure they know where they can go and be accommodated, and we're going to go back again and again and again and again. So if you want to build loyal clients, if you want to build a brand that has a following, become accessible. Aside from that, we are the largest minority group, and almost every one of you will be part of us at one time or another, either with a temporary disability or a permanent disability later in life. You might age into it. You might have an injury at any time. We don't care your gender, your age, your financial status. None of that matters to us. We accept anyone and everyone at any time. So make friends with your disability community. Make your destination accessible to the largest growing demographic in the world, and increase not only your humanity, but increase your profitability at the same time. And with that, just simple ways to become more accessible. Make sure your website is accessible. Is it accessible for blind, low vision? Do you have subtitles on it if you have a video? Do you have photo descriptions of every single photo you have there? If not, consult with somebody and ask them what information they need. Call your local community groups your association for the blind, your association for the deaf. Call them. Ask them what information they want to see on your website. What would make your website more usable to them? Use dark colors, contrasting colors. Everything that you do to make your website accessible is going to make me want to use it more. And then make sure that information is easy to find. It shouldn't be a little itty-bitty footnote at the bottom of the screen. Make it a main header with everything else that you have up there. Make it so it's easy to find and put all of it in the same place. This is our hearing accessibility. This is our visual. This is our mobility. And break it down so it's easy to read and easy to find. Especially for us neurodivergent people, we've got short attention spans. If you make it hard to find, we're giving up and moving on. So, and then consider, make sure that you have pictures of what the spaces look like. If you're not allowed to put it on your website, like Marriott, you have to follow very specific brand rules. Have that information available so that if somebody reaches out and says, can I see pictures of your restaurant so I know if it works for me? You have that available, and you can say, sure, you bet, here it is on the way. Or put it directly on there. Make sure people know exactly what you have available. What's accessible for me isn't accessible to my husband's grandfather who can walk but has bad knees. He wants a higher bed. I need a lower bed. But if I have the information, I'm able to decide and choose what's accessible to me. And then consider having somebody like me or one of the other businesses mentioned come in and do an accessibility audit where they're telling you what works and what doesn't work. I think that one is super critical and super important, that I've already talked about that. And then work with other companies and model after companies excelling in that space. You've got an amazing zoo. You've got Meegan here already. You have so many resources, and if you want a list of destinations and websites that are doing really well with accessibility, I'm happy to provide all of that information. Just let me know. And that is pretty much it. I'll leave you with this. One more video. Dancing makes me feel alive. I love how it draws people in. Everybody loves dancing. Most people are just too self-conscious to let themselves go and to do it. But when I get out there and I start dancing, it just invites people to be part of it. We are here on the Cornerstone with Holland America, and we are so excited. We just left the port, and we are about to head to Alaska for the best adventure. Oh, no. I haven't always been confident in myself, and I am now. I've always looked at where I felt self-confident, but now it's just, this is who I am, and I'm unapologetic about it, and I know that it doesn't matter what I look like. What they see is somebody having a good time, and I do. I have the best time when I'm out there, and I don't worry about anything else.
I can't believe we just saw Mama and shirtless. And we saw her pet salmon. That was really cool.
I am a mom, a wife, a business owner, and an advocate. I am strong and passionate. I fight for those that I love, and I fight for what I think is right. I think that there's nothing more important than creating a world that includes everyone. I think this is going to be one of the best experiences that we've had here in Alaska, and we've already had so many of those things. It's just been phenomenal. So I am ready.
Which one of you would like to write up right next to me?
I have a goal to change the world. I want to change it for everyone, and I want people to understand that those who have disabilities are just as valuable. They have just as many ideas. They have just as many thoughts, just as many emotions, just as many likes and dislikes, strengths and weaknesses. I want to shift the mindset from a mentality of this is where people with disabilities fit to this is where we all fit together. If you can't walk, roll. If you can't speak, listen. If you can't hear, observe. There's nothing stopping you from being completely in the moment and experiencing life to the best of your ability. Be fully engaged. Be fully present. Every day you wake up with the choice. Is today going to be a good day or a bad day? And you have the power to make whichever you decide come true. Thank you so much. I don't know if we have time for questions. If you wanted to do Anybody have any questions for me? Yes.
So, I was on the board of the airport for about 25 years, chaired it for 15, and I was chagrined to hear your story. So how do we get a hold of you to get what we should be improving?
You'll have to give my contact info, and she has a meeting with the airport Friday at 4. I'll be meeting with them already, and then of course everybody can have my contact info. I have a virtual card if you want that, or Julie can send my info out to you.
I think they're talking to them this morning, and they're having an internal meeting this morning about this.
Oh, fantastic.
So they're taking it very seriously.
So you talked to Nicole.
She was in the moment. We talked to all the people in the moment, but it didn't quite work. And not everyone has that luxury to be able to call the person in charge. So it should be addressed fully.
Absolutely. And I want to make sure that you all understand that this isn't a Lansing problem. This is a problem everywhere. And I think that it's interesting that it's happening now to me, like as we had that experience, it made me brainstorm some ways that I think we can address that systemically and make some improvements. And so hopefully we'll be able to work with the right people and make some fundamental changes to the way that baggage is handled altogether for wheelchair users, so that we're preemptively thinking about them, and we can maybe create a new label that identifies bags of those who are going to be last off, so that they know to leave them out in some extra time. I think there are ways to get around that. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. How can we get around this? We can't make it faster to get off the plane, but what if we could improve the rest of the experience? What if we made it so I didn't have to go hunt down my bag and go figure out where it is, but we made it easy for me to go and claim my bag after having to wait that 45 minutes to even get to the baggage claim area. So, and that's really what I want to address. So again, please note, none of this should ever feel like I'm pointing fingers at somebody. I want to come alongside and brainstorm with you and help you troubleshoot the areas and to become more accessible. So.
Hi, I'm Cindy Bowen. I've been in the hospitality industry for more years than I want to announce to this group. Some of them know. A couple of things. Are you getting the attention? You mentioned how we're obligated as property operators to brand standards. Are you getting the attention of the national brands and creating an awareness? Is that a thought? Is that an opportunity?
We're working on it. We're working very, very hard. This year has been a very, very exciting year because we've really seen accessibility come into the mainstream. And I talked about this earlier with other people for years. I've been trying to work in the space for quite a while, for at least 4 years before I became a wheelchair user. And then as a wheelchair user, it was for a long time, felt like I was spinning in the wind, not making any headway with anybody. But for the last year or so, and Meegan, tell me if you agree, it really seems like more and more people are getting on the bandwagon and realizing the importance and how much they're getting wrong. So we're starting to see these really cool changes and bigger companies. In fact, for the next 3 weeks, I'm gone more than I'm home. I'm here. I'm speaking next week at Cruise World directly to some of the big suppliers and brands and travel advisors. And then the following week, I'll be speaking at the National Tour Association. So everywhere, I think every time I get to speak and every time somebody like me gets to speak in a space like this, where it's not just a disability-focused event, it helps us get this message out even more.